tal, amigos y amigas del proyecto Grado Cero? Nos encontramos aquí en la Ciudad de México. Un saludo a la Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México. Acaba de concluir en estos días un evento muy importante de Ronald Dworkin, un homenaje que hacen en el Instituto de Investigaciones Jurídicas. El seminario se llamó Ronald Dworkin, Derecho, Moral e Interpretación. Y hoy nos encontramos con el profesor Dimitrios Kyritsis. ¿Así se pronuncia?
Kyritsis.
Ok, Kyritsis. Y él es de la Universidad de Reading y él fue participante en este seminario muy importante donde se discutieron grandes ideas, los grandes temas que trabajó Dworkin a lo largo de su vida, y vamos a platicar con él sobre estos importantes temas. Welcome, Professor.
It's good to be here.
First of all, what do you think is, I want to know your opinion about the Dworkin ideas. Why Dworkin is very important today?
Well, I think we should. I should start by saying that the topic of the workshop was one of the areas in which Ronald Dworkin wrote extensively, and this is the area of legal philosophy. But Ronald Dworkin wrote very, very broadly about a range of philosophical, legal, and political topics. And so, when you ask me why his ideas are important, I think we should pause and appreciate the breadth of his work first, and then assess the importance of that work in different areas. I think that as far as legal philosophy is concerned, his importance is undeniable. His work is not just impressive in its philosophical sophistication and rigor, but more importantly, it has caused a major shift in our thinking about the law. So we have to appreciate that Dworkin, with his work over that spans over several decades, challenged what is still the jurisprudential orthodoxy, legal positivism, and with his work he has presented to us a philosophically robust and very attractive alternative vision of law.
Okay, we can see that Dworkin has an interesting debate with Professor Hart. Some philosophers say that this debate or this dialogue, but not all people think that it's a debate, right? Says that it's the most important. And what we have to learn about this dialogue, because we can see Dworkin and Hart exchange ideas and they have their own opinions, but we are not working well at Hart. We have different visions about the topics they dialogue, but what we have to do with this debate?
Well, let me tell you that when I teach jurisprudence in the UK, I have to spend considerable time at the beginning of the module trying to explain to my students precisely why the Hart-Dworkin debate is still very important, because frankly the Hart-Dworkin debate still shapes the way we perceive the main problems of jurisprudence and the way we teach the main problems of jurisprudence still. Now, why is it important? Well, for two main reasons. One is because it brought to light what I take to be the central questions of jurisprudence. If I may put it thus, the central question of jurisprudence has to do with the extent to which moral considerations necessarily determine the content of the law or not. And on this very fundamental question, Hart and Dworkin took opposite sides. So they helped us with their exchange, and which is not just between Hart and Dworkin, right? Proponents of Hartian positivism joined the debate, and then proponents of Dworkinian interpretivism joined the debate as well. But what they helped us with their engagement is precisely to understand what it is at the very core that we do when we do jurisprudence. So that's the first reason. The first reason why it's so important goes back to what I said a moment ago. Both Hart and Dworkin offered us very, very, very sophisticated conceptions of the nature of law. So it's not just that they raised very important, the most important questions of jurisprudence, defined them in a clear and lucid way. It's also that they offered us very elaborate, very sophisticated, and very compelling answers to those questions. And so we are now blessed to have both a better appreciation of what it is that we do when we do jurisprudence, and also two very paradigmatic ways of answering the fundamental questions of jurisprudence.
One question we do when we study the philosophy of law is the relation between law and moral. Dworkin has an idea that moral can be related with law, and Hart says we have to exclude the moral. Can we really think or do the law excluding the moral? We can do that?
Well, let me just start by saying that I'm taking sides. I've taken sides in this debate, and I've in my work I've taken the Dworkinian side in this debate. And as you rightly said, Dworkin denies Hart's view that the relationship between law and morality is only contingent. Indeed, Dworkin maintains much more explicitly in his later work that law itself is a branch of political morality. So no, I don't think we can do law without reference to morality. In fact, when we do law, we do morality. Law is just a branch of morality. It's a branch of morality that applies to a specific moral problem that has to do with the organized exercise of state coercion. So when we ask ourselves what rights, legal rights and duties we have, what we in effect do is we're offering a moral justification for the exercise of state coercion.
Well, now let's talk more about the seminar of UNAM's about Dworkin. It was 2 long days of dialogue with other scholars, and I can see in the seminar all the scholars have a debate. Some ones accept ideas, others deny ideas. I think it was very interesting. But what's your impression about this workshop?
I was very, very happy to be here. This turned out to be a very, very interesting workshop. All the participants engaged very keenly in it, in the Q&A, but also contributed very, very interesting papers from which I've learned a lot. So the setting was conducive to a good debate. The papers were conducive to good and illuminating debate. And I should say that none of this would have happened without all the work that has been put into putting this in this thing together by the organizers. So I'm really very grateful to the sponsors of this event and to the organizers of this event. I'm also very grateful to my co-participants, because with their papers and with their participation in the Q&A, they really did teach me a lot of things.
Well, we can see that you give a lecture named Integrity, Legality, and Institutional Design. What do you discuss in this lecture?
Well, so as I said a moment ago, broadly speaking, I accept Dworkin's philosophical framework. In this paper, I examine one particular aspect of Dworkin's theory, what I take to be his emphasis on courts. And I take issue with that aspect of Dworkin's thesis. I think we do better to change the emphasis, not focus solely on courts when we think about the nature of law, but instead take what I name a wide scope view of the operation of the legal system, a view that includes, in our vision of the legal system, the cooperation between courts and other state institutions like the legislature. So I'm slightly critical of Dworkin's own theory, but I take my positive contribution to be broadly within the spirit of Dworkinian legal philosophy. So, if I may put it in a nutshell, I would say that my main claim in this paper is that, contrary to Dworkin, there's more law than just there's more to law than just judicial decisions. We have to appreciate that courts take part in a joint institutional effort with those other state institutions, and that institutional effort does not focus only on which rights and duties are judicially enforceable, can be enforced in court on demand, on individual demand, but instead also incorporates a concern about the health of that joint institutional effort. Let me give you an example. In many parliamentary systems, the head of state has the power to summon and dissolve parliament, but they can do so, we think, only under certain conditions. We think it's inappropriate for the head of state to use this power to promote a partisan agenda. But we don't think that should the head of state abuse this power, we can take him or her to court and enforce the proper use of this power. Does this mean that the duty of the head of state to summon and dissolve parliament under certain conditions only is not a legal duty? I don't think so. And I think this case demonstrates that maybe Dworkin's vision of legal rights and duties is perhaps too restrictive, and it also indicates how perhaps we could broaden that conception.
Well, this is the last question, the next one. I can see in the seminar you all scholars discuss those topics, but what we have to do next? We can see that the discussion did not end in the seminar. It starts a discussion about new topics, new ideas, different ways to do something. Mm-hmm. But what we have to do, the students, the scholars, all the people who want to know more about these topics?
The first thing I would recommend you to do is go back to the original texts that shaped this debate. So, the concept of law, Hart's concept of law, Dworkin's essays in taking rights seriously, and then in his later work, the responses to Dworkin's challenge made by defenders of Hart's legal positivism. So the first thing to do is to go back to those very important texts. You will find that these texts are by themselves very stimulating. But I think what is also important is to appreciate that this is not just a technical, philosophical discussion. It has very real impact on the way we conceive of legal scholarship, studying law, practicing law. You said a moment ago that you are doubtful that we can ever do law without morality. Well, if that's something that you can take home with you from reading Hart and Dworkin, that's a very, very important lesson. Many lawyers resist the idea that when they do law, when they practice law, they should engage in moral reasoning as well. Well, if Dworkin is right, then they do bad law.
Well, thank you very much for this time, for these words. I hope you can come back Mexico City again and soon. Maybe Juan Vega and Imer Flores will do more about Dworkin's, because this is the second seminar on this year, and they're excited. They want to do more events, and
I really, really hope so. I want to finish by saying that these past few days, and also my last visit in Mexico at UNAM and the Legal Research Institute, have convinced me that the Institute has been doing great work in promoting jurisprudence, not just in Mexico, but across the Spanish-speaking world. I can only hope that Juan and Imer and all the other members of the Institute will continue their good work. I hope that I will be involved in some of the next seminars, because I think that this is the best way to make progress with philosophical questions. Just be in a room, present our ideas, and then discuss them at length, and discuss them openly and directly. And I think that this was exactly what happened in the past couple of days. It was what happened when I first came to UNAM and I presented my work. The discussion was very, very thought-provoking, and I hope that there will be debate. There will be ongoing debates between people outside Mexico, jurisprudential scholars outside Mexico, and jurisprudential scholars like Imer and Juan in Mexico.
Well, thank you very much, and see you soon in Grado Cero.
Thank you.
¿Qué tal, amigos y amigas del proyecto Grado Cero? Nos encontramos aquí en la Ciudad de México. Un saludo a la Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México. Acaba de concluir en estos días un evento muy importante de Ronald Dworkin, un homenaje que hacen en el Instituto de Investigaciones Jurídicas. El seminario se llamó Ronald Dworkin, Derecho, Moral e Interpretación.
The importance of that work in different areas. I think that as far as legal philosophy is concerned, his importance is undeniable. His work is not just impressive in its philosophical sophistication and rigor, but more importantly, it has caused a major shift in our thinking about the law. So we have to appreciate that Dworkin, with his work over that spans over several decades, challenged what is still the
Y hoy nos encontramos con el profesor Dimitrios Kyritsis, ¿así se pronuncia?
Kyritsis.
Okay, Kyritsis. Y él es de la Universidad de Reading y él fue participante en este seminario muy importante donde se discutieron grandes ideas, los grandes temas que trabajó Dworkin a lo largo de su vida, y vamos a platicar con él sobre estos importantes temas. Welcome, Professor.
It's good to be here.
First of all, what do you think is, I want to know your opinion about the Dworkin ideas. Why Dworkin is very important today?
Well, I think we should. I should start by saying that the topic of the workshop was one of the areas in which Ronald Dworkin wrote extensively, and this is the area of legal philosophy. But Ronald Dworkin wrote very, very broadly about a range of philosophical, legal, and political topics. And so when you ask me why his ideas are important, I think we should pause and appreciate the breadth of his work first, and then assess jurisprudential orthodoxy, legal positivism. And with his work, he has presented to us a philosophically robust and very attractive alternative vision of law.
Okay. We can see that Dworkin has an interesting debate with Professor Hart. Some philosophers say that this debate or this dialogue, but not all people think that it's a debate, right? Says that it's the most important. And what we have to learn about this dialogue, because we can see Dworkin and Hart